Taurus. Maybe it's been a long time since you got used to carrying yourself through everything without letting anyone notice how tired you really are. Not the kind of exhaustion that makes you completely stop, but the kind where you still keep doing everything that needs to be done, while something inside you slowly goes quiet. You still reply to messages, still show up on time, still remember to grab someone's favorite snack while walking through the grocery store, still say it's okay almost automatically. But there are these very small moments that only you know about, like standing silently at the kitchen sink after cleaning everything up and suddenly feeling strangely empty for no clear reason. Or sitting in the car for a few extra minutes before going inside the house, just trying to breathe a little slower, like your body never really relaxed once the entire day. Taurus tends to be like that. People look at you and think you're steady, strong, reliable, and truthfully, you've been living that way for a very long time. You got used to being the person who keeps everything from falling out of place. The one who thinks ahead for everyone else. The one quietly carrying the heavier part without talking about it. Sometimes even you can't remember the last time you truly leaned on someone. And the strange part is, Taurus rarely calls that loneliness. You call it responsibility, maturity. I've got it. So even when you're exhausted, your instinct is still to pull inward instead of reaching out. Not because you don't want care, but because somewhere deep inside, there's this quiet fear that if you stop holding everything together, the world around you might begin to fall out of balance. A lot of Taurus people live in that feeling for so long that it starts to become instinct. You go to sleep still thinking about unfinished work. You try to rest, but part of your attention stays on your phone in case someone needs you. Even during a peaceful meal, it's hard to fully let yourself relax. Your body is here, but your mind is still standing guard somewhere far away. Maybe that's what people misunderstand about Taurus sometimes. You rarely complain, rarely make your emotions loud. Even on your hardest days, you still try to keep everything looking normal, and over time, that strength slowly becomes armor. An armor that makes you dependable in everyone else's eyes, but also makes it harder for anyone to reach the softest parts of you. Sometimes you even forget what it feels like to be cared for without having to earn it first. You learn to earn everything. Earn safety, earn love, earn rest only after all the responsibilities are finished. And because of that, even when life finally gets quiet for a moment, your heart still doesn't fully settle down. I think a lot of Taurus people carry that kind of silent tension. No one is forcing you to be strong all the time, but somewhere along the way, you started believing you had to be, as if the moment you stop holding everything up, something will immediately collapse. Some people call that resilience, but sometimes it feels more like a state of constant alertness. A way of living where you prepare for the worst before the good even has a chance to arrive. And maybe that's what exhausts Taurus the most. Not just the work. Not even the pressure from the outside world, but the feeling that you're never really allowed to soften, not allowed to slow down, not allowed to need people too much, not allowed to let go first. So you keep trying in silence. You keep becoming the most stable person in the room, even while something inside you has been running low for a very long time. And maybe lately, you've started noticing a very small shift inside yourself, a quiet exhaustion from constantly trying to control everything, from always preparing for the worst-case scenario. From always trying to maintain the image that I'm fine. And maybe that's where the first small cracks begin to appear inside the Taurus heart. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough for the softer part of you that's been hidden away for so long to finally want to breathe again. And maybe that's also the moment when your familiar kind of strength begins to change shape into something entirely different. It no longer feels like a safe place to hide, more like a room that's been sealed shut for so long that Taurus has almost forgotten what it feels like to open the door again. Some people live through emotional impulses, but Taurus often lives through quiet caution. You rarely let things drift too far outside your control, not because you enjoy controlling people, but because you've grown used to feeling like you always need to be the one who's ready if something goes wrong. So even during the most peaceful moments, a part of you still hasn't fully rested. You're laughing with people, but your mind is already thinking about what needs to be handled tomorrow. You're lying in bed, but your body still holds a slight tension, like it hasn't completely believed the day is finally over. Something good happens to you, and your first instinct is to wonder how long it's going to last. It's the kind of vigilance that's almost invisible from the outside. Not loud, not dramatic. A lot of Taurus people even mistake it for just part of my personality, until one day you realize it's been a very long time since you truly relaxed around anyone. Maybe you've been there too. When softeners help, your first response is almost always, "It's okay, I can handle it." When something hurts you, You stay quiet for days instead of calling someone. When you feel overwhelmed, you still force yourself to finish everything first before allowing yourself to finally feel tired. And slowly, Taurus becomes very good at suffering alone. So good that people begin to believe you genuinely don't need anyone. And maybe the saddest part is, sometimes you start believing that too. I think there's a very specific kind of isolation that Taurus carries, not the kind where you disappear from the world. You still show up, still care deeply, still listen carefully when people speak. It's just that the softest parts inside you rarely get brought into the light. You keep them hidden behind your familiar calmness, behind short answers, behind the small smile you give when someone asks, "Are you okay?" And over time, the armor that once helped Taurus survive difficult seasons slowly begins to pull you away from real connection. Because when someone is always protecting themselves, it becomes very hard to receive anything with a fully open heart, love included, care too, even kindness. You receive those things, but you don't completely trust them. Part of you still stands there quietly, preparing for the moment everything changes again. That's why Taurus often becomes exhausted before the storm even arrives. Exhausted from constantly monitoring your emotions, from trying to keep life stable for everyone else, from never fully feeling like you can let your shoulders relax completely. And maybe the hardest thing to admit is, that way of living once saved you many times. It made you strong during difficult seasons, helped you survive things you had to walk through alone, turned you into someone other people could depend on. But when a survival mechanism lasts too long, sometimes it slowly becomes a prison. Taurus was never meant to live superficially. You feel things deeply. You remember things for a very long time. And once your heart has truly been disappointed, you quietly build another layer of protection around it. At first, you just become a little more careful. Then you share a little less. And eventually, carrying everything alone starts to feel normal, until even the people trying to get close to you no longer know how to reach you anymore. Maybe that's why lately, Taurus has started feeling conflicted within themselves. One part of you still wants to remain as strong as before, but another part has grown deeply tired of holding everything alone all the time. You notice yourself becoming more emotional over very small things. A simple check-in from someone, a quiet moment after a long day, a brief feeling of being genuinely noticed by another person, as if the heart hidden beneath all that armor no longer wants to stay in survival mode forever. And sometimes, those small cracks appearing inside your strength are actually the first signs that Taurus is slowly learning how to exist in a softer way. Not everyone notices the moment their heart first begins to soften. It usually doesn't arrive through some massive life event. There's no loud sound, no dramatic movie-like moment. It's just that lately, you've started realizing you can't hold everything inside as tightly as you used to. Maybe it's sitting quietly in the kitchen after everyone else has gone to sleep, and suddenly breaking into tears without fully understanding why. Not exactly heartbreak. Not completely hopelessness either, just emotions that have been held in for far too long. Or maybe it's an ordinary day, and someone asks you a simple, kind question, and suddenly your throat tightens. An old song starts playing in the car. You pass by a familiar place in the afternoon. A very small moment, but somehow it makes the Taurus heart that's been trying so hard to stay strong finally soften for a second. And maybe the most confusing part is this feeling that you can no longer control your inner world the way you used to. You've always been used to holding yourself together, used to swallowing emotions before they ever reach the surface, used to handling everything silently on your own. So when the first cracks begin to appear, Taurus often assumes something must be wrong. You start wondering why you're suddenly this tired, why things you once handled easily now leave you emotionally drained, why your heart has become so sensitive to such small things. But maybe you're not becoming weaker. Maybe the real part of you inside has simply gone too long without being allowed to speak. I think Taurus carries a very quiet habit like that. You only allow yourself to feel things after the responsibilities are finished, after work is handled, after everyone else is okay, after you've taken care of everyone around you. But emotions don't always wait that patiently. Some sadness sits silently inside the body for years. Some pressure builds month after month. Some disappointments are hidden behind a quiet, "it's okay," before Taurus keeps moving forward again. And eventually, the body starts carrying what the heart never had the chance to say out loud. You feel exhausted even after getting enough sleep. You become quieter than before. Loud conversations drain you faster now. Sometimes you just want to disappear for a few days somewhere peaceful where no one expects anything from you. And strangely, the harder you try to return to the old version of yourself, the emptier you begin to feel inside. Because maybe the Taurus heart has grown tired of surviving inside that armor for so long. That's why lately these small emotional collapses have started happening more often. A moment where you can't hold back tears anymore. A moment where pretending to be okay takes too much energy. A moment where you sit in silence for a very long time, simply realizing you've spent too many years living in tension. And moments like that can leave Taurus feeling lost. You're not used to the softer version of yourself. Not used to needing more rest. Not used to feeling like your heart wants to be held instead of constantly enduring everything alone. But sometimes, those quiet breakdowns are simply the way life asks a person to finally stop and breathe, not to destroy them, but to pull them out of a survival state they've been trapped inside for far too long. There's a very gentle truth that Taurus rarely allows themselves to consider, that a person does not have to stay strong all the time to deserve love. You do not have to be perfect to deserve rest. You do not have to exhaust yourself completely before you're allowed to soften. And maybe what's happening inside you lately isn't really a collapse at all. Maybe it feels more like a thick layer of ice beginning to melt, slowly, quietly. But enough for the heart that's been locked away for so long to start feeling again the things it once had to numb itself against just to survive. Maybe that's why Taurus has become more emotional lately when faced with kindness, more affected by small gentle moments, more drawn toward quiet places where life moves a little slower. As if after so many years of constantly holding everything together, your heart is finally growing tired of living like a fortress all the time. And sometimes, through those very soft cracks, an entirely different kind of peace begins finding its way into the Taurus heart. Not the kind of peace that comes because everything in life finally became perfect. More like the feeling that your heart simply no longer has the strength to keep living in a constant state of tension. Maybe Taurus has spent too many years believing they need to earn rest first. You finish the work before allowing yourself to sit down. You make sure everyone else is okay before thinking about your own emotions. Even when you're completely exhausted, you still whisper to yourself, just a little more. As if your existence always has to be tied to accomplishing something, to being useful, strong, reliable. And if one day you no longer have the energy to keep carrying all of that, Taurus often ends up feeling guilty toward themselves first. It's a very quiet kind of pressure. No one is standing in front of you demanding perfection all the time. But somewhere along the way, you learn to measure your worth through productivity. So sometimes, even when Taurus is technically resting, you're not truly resting at all. You lie down, but your mind keeps replaying unfinished tasks. You try to watch a movie to relax. Then a few minutes later, you're back on your phone answering work messages again. You go out to eat with friends. But somewhere in the back of your mind, there's still this feeling that maybe you should be doing something more productive instead. And slowly, life turns into a long cycle of constantly proving you're good enough to deserve peace. And maybe that's what exhausts Taurus most deeply, not only the work itself, but the feeling that you never really get to put down all the roles you've been carrying. The strong one, the dependable one, the one who always handles everything. You've worn those identities for so long that sometimes you don't even know who you are without constantly holding yourself together. Some Taurus people even feel uncomfortable when a day passes by peacefully. No drama, no pressure, no one needing anything from you, and instead of relaxing, you become restless because your body has grown too used to constantly moving forward. I think that's why lately, many Taurus people have started feeling tired of their old way of living. Not because they've become lazy, not because they've become weak, but because the heart inside you no longer wants to turn life into a marathon of endurance. You begin noticing days where you simply don't want to keep fighting anymore. Don't want to always be the understanding one. Don't want to keep earning small pieces of love through quiet self-sacrifice. And honestly, that feeling can scare Taurus at first, because you've spent so long building your sense of value through what you're able to do. So when you finally begin slowing down, a strange emptiness appears. An emptiness where you're no longer busy enough to avoid your real emotions. Maybe lately you've started noticing small changes like that too. Wanting to sit in silence longer than before. Preferring softer conversations instead of noisy, crowded spaces. Wanting to come home early, take a warm shower, eat something simple, and finally let your body fully relax. Very ordinary things. But for a long time, Taurus treated those moments like rewards that had to be earned only after reaching complete exhaustion. And now, there's a part of you quietly asking something different. Do I really have to wear myself out first before I deserve rest? It's a very soft question, but for Taurus, it changes more than you realize. Because for so many years, you've lived believing that every good thing must come through effort. To be loved, you must be good enough. To feel safe, you must stay in control. To rest, you must finish every responsibility first. But the human heart was never meant to function like a machine powered only by achievement. Eventually, the body begins craving a different kind of peace. Not peace after victory, not peace because everything is finally completed, but peace that comes when you stop treating yourself like a project that constantly needs fixing. And maybe that's what Taurus is slowly learning lately, that life isn't only here to be conquered. Sometimes, it simply wants to be felt through a softer heart. And maybe that's why, for the first time in a very long while, Taurus is beginning to stand inside their own silence and slowly learn how to receive something without having to chase it first. That isn't easy for Taurus. You've spent so long being used to movement, used to figuring everything out on your own, used to feeling like if you're not actively holding things together, life might slowly slip out of your hands. So when life finally begins slowing down a little, your first instinct is often anxiety. You start wondering if you're falling behind somehow, if you're becoming too passive, if softening like this might somehow make you weaker. But sometimes, Taurus, real peace doesn't come from gripping everything tightly. It comes from the moment your heart finally stops resisting every small current of life. There's a huge difference between doing and allowing. One is constantly forcing yourself to keep everything running through sheer effort. The other is when you stop expecting yourself to carry the entire world on your shoulders every single day. And maybe lately, Taurus has been standing somewhere between those two states. You're still hardworking, still responsible, still not the kind of person who gives up easily. But deep inside, there's a quiet desire growing to live a little lighter now. Not lighter because life suddenly became easy, but because you're beginning to understand that you cannot survive forever in a constant state of defense. There are mornings lately when Taurus wakes up and realizes what you need most isn't more motivation, but more gentleness toward yourself. A hot cup of coffee slowly sipped instead of rushed. A small song playing softly while cleaning the house. An afternoon that doesn't need to be packed full of obligations. A quiet enough moment where your body no longer feels like it has to stay on alert all the time. Those things sound very small, but for someone who has lived through responsibility for so many years, small moments like that can begin to feel like a quiet form of healing. I think Taurus starts changing through moments exactly like those. The moment you stop forcing yourself to stay strong all the time. The moment you stop treating rest like something that has to be earned. The moment you allow yourself to receive care without immediately feeling guilty for it. At first, that feeling is very unfamiliar for Taurus. When someone genuinely wants to help you, you no longer reject it automatically. When a peaceful day arrives, you don't rush to fill it with work anymore. When your heart feels tired, you begin listening to it instead of forcing it back into silence again. And strangely enough, the softer Taurus becomes, the more real you begin to feel. No longer trying to maintain the image of always being stable. No longer exhausting yourself trying to prove your worth. No longer living as though everything would collapse the moment you loosen your grip for even a second. Maybe this is something Taurus was never truly taught before. That softness is not weakness. A person can still be strong without being constantly tense, still mature without isolating themselves from help, still dependable without sacrificing all of their inner peace. Sometimes softness actually requires far more courage, because opening your heart after years of protecting yourself is not easy at all. Taurus tends to trust certainty, plans, things that can be controlled through effort and hard work. But some things in life do not arrive through force. Some forms of peace only appear when you stop trying to bend everything to your will. Some connections only move closer when your heart stops guarding itself so intensely. Some beautiful moments can only find their way toward you when there's finally enough quiet space inside you for them to enter. And maybe that's what's been changing inside Taurus lately. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a slow shift. You resist rest a little less now. You fear imperfection a little less now. You no longer feel like you must carry everything alone. And within that softer state, a very quiet kind of grace begins to appear. Not the dramatic kind of miracle, not something that flips your entire life upside down overnight. More like the feeling that after years of constantly bracing yourself against the world, Taurus is finally learning what it feels like to breathe through a heart that no longer feels so heavily guarded. And maybe as the resistance slowly leaves that heart, something very gentle begins moving toward Taurus in its own quiet way. Not through some loud dramatic moment. Not through something overwhelming that suddenly changes everything at once. More like light slowly entering a room after the curtains have only been opened just a little. Taurus often believes the important things in life must be carefully prepared for. You're used to planning ahead in your mind, used to calculating backup plans, used to imagining every possible outcome before allowing yourself to feel hope. So sometimes, if Taurus knew ahead of time that something beautiful was coming, you would immediately turn it into responsibility. You'd start thinking about what you need to do to keep it, how you need to change so you don't lose it, how much harder you still need to try to finally deserve it. And before long, even joy becomes something that has to be carefully managed. Maybe that's why some of the most beautiful gifts in life arrive so quietly, without warning, without demanding perfect preparation, without requiring you to become the strongest version of yourself first. They tend to arrive during the seasons when Taurus is finally beginning to soften. The moments when you stop trying so hard to prove yourself. The moments when you begin accepting that you deserve love too, just like everyone else does. And maybe that's what makes real blessings feel so different. They often find their way toward the exact parts of the heart that have been exhausted for a very long time. Not to fill some flaw inside you, but to gently touch the places that have endured too much in silence. Maybe it's a connection that makes you feel safe without needing to perform strength all the time. A rare stretch of peace where your body finally stops living in constant alert mode. The feeling of being truly seen without having to become perfect first. Very small things, but for Taurus, those are often the moments that reach the deepest places inside you. Because after years of surviving through self-reliance alone, what your heart may have needed all along wasn't necessarily more success. Maybe it was the feeling that you no longer have to fight constantly just to hold on to peace. And strangely enough, the less tightly Taurus tries to control everything, the more clearly you begin recognizing what actually belongs to you. No longer chasing 10 different things at once. No longer forcing yourself to hold every role perfectly. No longer living as though your value only exists when you're being useful to someone. There's been a very quiet lightness appearing inside you lately. You allow yourself to move slower now, to breathe deeper now, to trust small moments of peace instead of constantly preparing for the next storm. And maybe that softer state is exactly what finally opened the door that Taurus accidentally kept locked for too many years. Because a heart that's always tense has a hard time recognizing when something gentle is trying to come closer. A person who lives too long in survival mode often doesn't know what to do with safety when it finally arrives. So sometimes life has to soften Taurus first, slow down the defensive reflexes, melt the ice of self-isolation, not to weaken you, but so you can finally receive something beautiful without immediately fearing that you're going to lose it. Maybe that's why lately Taurus feels emotional over very simple things. A calm conversation that doesn't leave you drained afterward. A person who doesn't make you prove your worth. A slow, peaceful day where there's no pressure to become anyone else. Those moments seem small, but they touch the exact cracks life has quietly created inside you over the years. Not to hurt you more, but so the exhaustion you've carried for so long finally has somewhere to rest. And maybe that's what Taurus is slowly beginning to understand now. Not every beautiful thing comes from endless striving. Some things arrive the moment the heart stops chasing them so desperately. The moment you stop running so far away from yourself. The moment softness no longer feels embarrassing to you anymore. Because sometimes the only thing a person truly needs to prepare for goodness entering their life is a heart that is no longer completely closed. And maybe through that very quiet opening, Taurus is beginning to step into an entirely different way of living than the years spent constantly bracing against the world. Not because life suddenly became perfect, not because every fear disappeared overnight. It's just that somewhere inside you, something has started to soften, very quietly, very gently. Like waking up in the morning without immediately preparing yourself for the worst anymore. Not constantly scanning the horizon wondering when this peace will end. Not living as though you must protect yourself from every possible heartbreak before you even allow yourself to feel joy. Maybe Taurus has spent too many years waiting for the other shoe to drop. Even when something beautiful appears, a part of you still stays cautious. A part that never fully relaxes. A part always preparing for the possibility that everything could suddenly change again. And maybe that's what exhausts Taurus most deeply sometimes. Not the actual storms themselves, but the fact that your heart never truly leaves its defensive posture. And then one day, you slowly realize you don't want to live that way anymore. You don't want peace to feel like something that constantly has to be guarded. You don't want love to feel like something that must be earned through sacrifice. You don't want rest to exist only after exhaustion. And quietly, something begins changing inside Taurus the moment you stop trying to prove your worth every single day. You begin eating slower, speaking softer. You stop feeling guilty for spending an evening simply resting. You stop forcing yourself to stay productive every second just to feel valuable. You stop treating vulnerability like something shameful. You stop believing that you must remain endlessly strong in order to deserve love. And strangely enough, inside those slower moments of living, Taurus begins feeling closer to themselves than they have in years. No longer performing the role of the stable one all the time. No longer carrying the entire world just to prove you're good enough. Just being a human being. Someone who gets tired. Someone who needs comfort too. Someone whose heart sometimes wants a break from constantly holding everything together. And maybe that isn't weakness at all. Maybe it's the first time in a very long while that Taurus is allowing themselves to live instead of merely survive. And maybe the most beautiful thing isn't some huge life-changing miracle after all. Maybe it's simply the moment you no longer feel like you have to fight just to deserve peace. I've always thought there's something deeply beautiful about Taurus once they stop living in tension. You're still deep-hearted, still sincere, still the kind of person who makes others feel safe. The only difference now is that safety is finally beginning to return to your own heart too. And if somewhere inside this story, you recognized a part of yourself, there are probably many other Taurus souls out there quietly moving through the same feeling right now. Some are learning how to rest without guilt. Some are learning how to open their hearts again after years of protecting themselves. And some are only now beginning to realize they never needed to be perfect to deserve love in the first place. And if you ever feel like staying a while with stories that move slowly like this, maybe the Taurus stories will always remain here, like a small quiet corner where the heart can breathe a little softer in a world that often feels too loud. And maybe after everything, what Taurus was truly searching for was never invincibility at all. Maybe it was simply a place gentle enough, where you no longer have to keep bracing yourself anymore.